Okay, so welcome to this introduction to Jing Fang, and I'm absolutely delighted to be able to talk about it because it's been for me such a journey, really. So to begin with, I just wanted to share a little bit about the journey. And so in 2014, what happened was that Suzanne Robidoux set up an online series of lectures with Dr. Feng, where she was translating for Dr. Feng. And it was meant for the American audience, so it was 2 o'clock in the morning for us. So I basically got up at 2 o'clock in the morning and did these lectures in the middle of the night. And the reason I did it was because after I'd done one, I suddenly realized that for me, this was a really, really clear way forwards with herbal medicine. And, you know, I've been teaching herbal medicine for quite some time, and I suddenly realized that what I'd been looking for, which was a really good starting point for a clinical effective practice, was already here in Jing Fang. So this was us in 2014 actually going to visit, facilitated by Suzanne, who's sitting there like the third from the right. This was the first year that we went there. So Dr. Feng, here you can see Dr. Feng, he is the most extraordinary gentleman. You know, he is really, really kind. And one of the things that really touches me is the way that he's been so generous with his knowledge. And I think that he was very pleased to talk to us because in the Chinese hospital system, it's very difficult for people to study Jing Fang because Jing Fang is essentially, it's a system where you have to absorb it over time. And what happens in China is that people go to a doctor for a month or something, and then they go back into the hospital. And so it's very hard for people to stay with him for long enough to do this. And it doesn't have the status in China that will enable a doctor to climb up the hospital hierarchy ladder. So he was feeling a little bit sad that he wasn't passing on his knowledge, which is why he was happy for Suzanne to invite people from abroad, which was us. So then in 2015, we invited him to the UK. So this is our clinic, and this is where we teach. And he opened the Jing Fang apprenticeship. So this is him opening the Jing Fang apprenticeship in 2015. And so then the question, well, we've already talked a little bit about why you should study Jing Fang when you've already studied the system of diagnosis of TCM. And why would you choose to study this system when it's not the system that most people use in China? So I was thinking about the answers, my answers to this at the moment, which are, first of all, this clinical effectivity. I mean, it is really effective and you get really good results. And that's not to say that you can help everybody. You never can help everybody. But it's really so much better for me than anything else that I've done. The second thing is that the Jing Fang gives you a really good way of looking at the extremely complex pictures that we see in clinical practice. So although, you know, in Jing Fang, normally you start with simple pictures and then you build up. Actually, for us, because of the kind of patient base, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you, but I see people who have been through Western medicine and have had no results, and they're often really, really complicated and they have everything. You think, well, they've got everything. Where do I start? Now, in Jing Fang, you have actually 6 different ways of looking at everything. So the Xiaoyang and the Zhuiyin, this is the half interior, half exterior. Actually, by definition, they are excess and deficient. They are interior and exterior, and they are hot and cold. So in those 2 syndromes, the Xiaoyang is the yang aspect, and the Zhuiyin is the yin aspect. And the yin aspect basically means a lot more deficiency underlying. So even within those 2 syndromes, you've got 2 ways of looking at this complexity. But then you've got the combination of 3 yang. So that's the Tai Yang, the Xiaoyang, and the Yang Ming with the Tai Yin. And then you've got the combination without the half and half. So that's the Tai Yang with the Tai Yin and the Yang Ming. And then you've got the same in the Zhui Yin. So you can have 3 yin together with Yang Ming. or you can have just the Shaoyin with the Taiyin and the Yangming. So essentially, you've got a lot of ways of differentiating really complex patterns. The next thing that I think is really good about it is that it's very efficient. It delimits the number of herbs and formulas you need to learn, which means that you can actually, in a kind of limited period of time, like most people don't have more than 2 years to study herbs, really. And in that period of time, you can actually, you can learn enough herbs and formulas to be effective in clinical practice. And because it's limited to the Shang Han Lun, of course, there are many more TCM herbs that you can use. But once you've got the idea of how you do it with these particular herbs and formulas, then the world is your oyster. You can then go out and use other herbs and do it in a Jing Fang kind of a way, so that you can then start to look at how your TCM and the Jing Fang can work together. So it's really about clinical effectiveness again. So the next thing is that it gives you a tool for evaluating what you do. And this was a little bit what Vasanthi was just saying, that, it tells you the result of your formula will tell you where you need to go next. And when I was thinking about this, actually, what I think this is about is trust in the system of the Jing Fang. That's to say, if Jing Fang says something is going to happen, that thing will happen if you've got the diagnosis right. And if you haven't got the diagnosis right and it doesn't happen, then you know that you've got the diagnosis wrong. You don't kind of think, oh, well, these Chinese herbs don't work. It isn't like that. It's very, the formulas and the formula patterns are very direct, and they go where they say they go. And that to me is really quite amazing.